The streets of Italy were bursting at the seams just yesterday. 2 million people in the South European nation took to the streets Friday, the 3rd of October, to protest the Israeli interception of the global Sumud flotilla that was stopped by Israel. They were carrying, after all, the Sumud, battle-hardened descendants of the Vikings like Greta Thunberg. And in their cargo were weapons of mass nutrition. We must stop these guys, damn! So deployment of Israeli commandos, look here, they deployed commandos, one could argue, made sense, right? Very dangerous cargo and people. Now, the general strike in Italy was called primarily by Italy's major trade unions, CGIL and USB, or CGIL and USB, not the stick you put into your computer. And they made it, these giant trade unions made it clear that for Italians, starving people and then blocking other civilians from delivering food to those people is a no comprende. Or assolutamente no. Damn it, messed up the Italian. Assolutamente, okay, doesn't matter. The Sumud flotilla was carrying 40 Italian nationals amongst its 500-strong combined crew from 44 different nationalities. And the Italian trade union leaders accused yesterday the Italian government under Giorgia Meloni of complicity in the flotilla's interception, saying, you guys allowed it. You had a warship tailing. Why did it peel off at the end when it's absolutely needed? That's when it was needed, right? Anyway, it was expected though, anyway, because no warship wants to fire on Israeli warships and then Israel's going to start defending itself in Rome. Nah, bruv, I can't be dealing with that. So they peeled it. It makes sense. Also, Italy's government basically abandoned its citizens at sea, and that doesn't play very well with the Italian citizenry. They're now somewhere in Israel, these Italians, because they got taken to Ashdod port. We'll talk about that in more details. You got Itamar Ben-Gvir sort of walking along and talking like he thinks he's Zoran Mamdani in New York City. I don't know what's going on there, but we'll talk about it, and I'll post a clip of what I'm talking about in a upcoming video later today. Now, the huge 2 million, guys, that's a huge number, by the way. 2 million. Where's the space for 2 million people to stand somewhere? Anyway, the huge 2 million strong protest is intended to demonstrate disagreement among the citizenry for Italy's support at a state level for Israel, and it calls for Italy to sever arms shipments and diplomatic ties with the Western outpost state in the Middle East. That's the news. Bye-bye. Arrivederci. Yes, nailed that one. Arrivederci means goodbye. Bye, guys. See ya. Now, here's the analysis for the real G's who stuck around. Citizen sentiment in European nations has sharply turned against the Israeli state these last couple of years. That's been the geopolitical trajectory. Shockingly, one could argue, not really, this is sarcasm. Shockingly, men and women in Europe do not like a state withholding food from women and baby formula from children. They say that does not fly with us. No, I can't do an Italian accent. Let's leave it. But let me tell you, what all this European protesting is also doing, because this is not on many people's radar, it's riling up the citizens in the Muslim world as well. In particular, the citizens of Middle Eastern countries like the Gulf monarchies, like Egypt, powerful states, mind you, that have done relatively little to oppose the Israeli-engineered crisis in Gaza. Relatively little compared to what could be done. Quite comfortably, you could say. It depends on, comfort is subjective, of course. You'd have to, at a state level, make some sacrifices and go through some diplomatic, economic problems to actually do something. But you could do it. But why would you, right? Well, if your citizens are riled up enough, that's why you would, right? Muslims, in their tens of millions in the Middle East, are frustrated. They're saying, we are being outdone and outraged by the Europeans. What is going on? They show more support for Palestinians than us. They are our brothers and sisters. How is that possible? Where is our government, right? I don't know why I sound like the dictator or Borat or, that Israeli agent who's apparently a Palestinian and he switched and he's got that Borat accent. Anyway, it's true to some extent. Analytically speaking, the citizenry in the Middle East will look to European countries where civil liberties are significantly more expanded, and the government mechanism allows for open protest, by and large. I know it's being rolled back, but by and large. And they'll say, why can't we do that? What's our government's doing, right? European countries like the UK and France, I remind you, staunch allies of the Israeli state for decades, recognized Palestine. I know it doesn't do anything on the ground, but even recognition by voice, do you know how big of a shift that is for the foreign policy positions of these Western countries? Why did they recognize them? In an attempt to calm their people. The protests were too much. The civil discontent was too much. The sentiment of the citizenry here shifted too much. And has it worked? Has it calmed the people? Well, time will tell. The people will either be okay with that, or they'll say, no, actually, just recognition is not enough. We need our state to do more, and the state might have to, accept more compromises to its current position. But Italy, I remind you, does not recognize Palestine yet. So the Italian government didn't even throw these guys a pizza or a bone in that regard by saying, okay, we recognize the state of Palestine. No, not even that. So the people are extra angry there, right? It's 2 million people who came out to protest. So these citizens are putting huge pressure on their governments to change course. And governments, no doubt, are strongly influenced. These governments, no doubt, are strongly influenced by the special interest groups that try to keep them aligned with the Israeli state, the AIPAC equivalent in each of these countries, the Zionists attempting to make sure at a political level that the administrations of these European countries align with the Israeli state. And that's understandable. The Israeli state needs as many allies as it can get. It's got a lot of influence that it's built over the years, and it's exercising that, it's flexing that. But one thing is for sure, politicians in the West won't give up their seats of power, won't give up their parliament membership, won't give up their ministerial positions, sacrifice themselves to keep their state temporarily aligned with the Israeli state. They don't have this undying loyalty, fealty to the Zionist dream. No. If citizen sentiment goes too far, demands too much of the state in whatever European country you want to talk about, Italy in being the example of this post, and support for Israel in a country becomes a liability, these nations' administrations and the officials within them will drop support like it's hot and begin to distance themselves from Israel, saying to their voters, look, I'm distancing myself. And the voters will be like, good, we vote for you again. And they'll be like, great, okay, it works. I'll have to just keep away from supporting Israel now. They'll do that. It's up to the voters by and large. And that's already happening, right? But geopolitics is often a slow game, especially the internal politics of a country. And the distancing of Europe from Israel is far from over, though it's moving in that direction. For better or worse, I'm just reporting to you the news, guys. If the trajectory is anything to go by, Israel is being further isolated, diplomatically speaking, from its former European allies. That's just the assessment. And all the while, we'll wrap up on this, all the while, the Muslim citizens of Egypt, of Saudi Arabia, the other GCC countries, they look with jealousy at the hundreds of thousands in Europe who demand a change in foreign policy, and they can't do anything themselves in Egypt or in Saudi Arabia. But behind closed doors, they are doing their thing. They are protesting too. They're pressuring their governments too, not in the same way, not out into the streets with red, green, and black, white face paint, right, and Palestine banners. But the pressure is there. And sources suggest the pressure is mounting. It's very hard to see, of course. In these countries, you'll only see the pressure materialize if the administration suddenly says something crazy like, we need a Palestinian state now. I'll show you the borders. Here's a map. This is what we need. Israel needs to get lost from these, and these areas. Right? That would be like, oh, wow, internal pressure did a lot. We didn't see until it got so far that it flipped a switch somewhere. Enough pressure. And you may see government positions in the Middle East change as well, be that Egypt, be that Saudi Arabia. And if it doesn't, and the administrations push back too hard, it's a balancing act, right, for administration. If they push back too hard against a citizenry who's also too upset, they risk civil disobedience, they risk revolt, worst case scenario for the administration. So it's a geopolitical balancing act. Egypt's administration, Saudi's administration, they have to sort of balance it. They have to be like, okay, we need to keep the ship steady. We need to not destabilize ourselves by going on a mad one against Israel in some way, military conflict or economic pressure or whatever it is. But if we do absolutely nothing, these citizens are eventually going to pop the lid on this whole thing and be like, yo, we need a new prince. And that can't be having that. Can't be having that. Absolutely don't support that, right? So, the administrations might have to flex a bit to accommodate the citizen needs. Anyway, for the unbiased, I'll see you on the next one.